What's going on, everybody? I'm your host, Ben Ballion, back with another episode of the Sports Pod. And today is part 30 of the 82-part series where I'm recapping all the Knicks games from this season. And last night, the New York Knicks took a dub against the Timberwolves, the top team in the West. OG Anunoby showed up and showed out in his first game as a Knick. Julius Randle with a stellar performance. I'll get into all of that after the intro.
That ball is out of here!
Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James! LeBron James with the rejection. For three. Bang!
All right, jumping right into the Knicks win over the Timberwolves, 112-106, and the debut for OG Anunoby and Precious Achiuwa. Malachi Flynn was out with a wrist injury, and I don't know if he's going to get minutes for this team. He's coming over here from Toronto, and he can't play at the start. And Deuce looked all right, playing in the backup point guard position. He didn't play well at all. In 7 minutes, he was 0 for 3 from the field, a turnover, and no other stats. So Malachi Flynn definitely has room to take over Deuce's spot if he can come back and play well. But Deuce does provide a lot of defense, which I know Tibbs likes, and I think that's a reason why he might stay playing that bench position and getting minutes, which he wasn't doing with Quickly on this roster. But now that Quickly's gone, still unfortunate for Knicks fans. I know a lot of people already miss him, but over time, I think this deal is going to be worth it for sure. OG seems like a really good player already. Seems like he's gonna fit in really well. 17 points, 2 steals, 6 rebounds in this one, and he did foul out. But the biggest stat, in my opinion, is that he didn't allow a bucket from Anthony Edwards in the second quarter. He was the primary defender on Edwards the entire game, and for him for Edwards not to score in the second quarter, that's really good. Edwards is becoming a superstar in this league, one of the top players in the West. He might be an all-star starter. But I don't know. He's going to be the sixth man for that squad if he's not a starter. Because when you think about it, he plays the shooting guard position. And at the guard in the West, you already have Luka and Shea, who are they better than Anthony Edwards? They certainly don't have the top team in the West, which Anthony Edwards does and has led his team to. So for Anthony Edwards not to score is huge. And for the Knicks to win this game is also huge. It starts with a month of January. That's going to be a lot easier than the month of December was for the Knicks. They have one of the weakest schedules in this month. And this is the month for me where that they take that jump. They're at the 8th seed right now, but it's still really tight. And I think that by the end of this month, the Knicks could definitely be the 5th seed pushing for the 4. And that's going to be huge. If we could get that 4 seed, 4th or 5th is right where I have us at the for this season, unless we make that move and go get that Devin Booker and go get that Steph Curry or go get that Joel Embiid. Donovan Mitchell's not coming to New York. The Cavs announced yesterday that they're not taking calls on Donovan Mitchell and that he's going to stay a Cav. So the Knicks missed on him last offseason, and they're not going to get him. And that's all right. Because there are other guys that I think we can go get. I think Devin Booker's probably my favorite option that they would go get to trade for, because he's a shooting guard. He can shoot the ball from wherever on the court. He's mainly a mid-range shooter, and which I don't love, but he's a superstar and he can score the ball whenever he wants. And that's what Julius Randle showed that he can do in this game. He had 39 points, but at the end of the game, when it mattered most, when the Wolves were cutting into the lead and eventually cut it to a 4-point game at one point, Julius Randle closed it out. And when Brunson wasn't scoring as much this game, Randle stepped up. Trade him. Oh, he's so bad. No, Randle's here to stay. Randle's a Knick. And he's a good Knick in that. Randle is an integral part of this team that is going to stay. And it's going to stay that way until he eventually gets traded or he's out of his prime, because I think he'll re-sign in New York. He's talked about wanting to bring a championship to New York, and I know how hard he plays every night. And this is a guy that will lead the team in scoring if he has to. He'll take every shot if he has to and not think twice about it. He said he wants to be more efficient this year, and I don't even blame him for that first part of the season. He was coming off ankle surgery. Like, you could not expect him to be at 100%. Coming off of ankle surgery that he suffered, or that he underwent in the offseason. And then now he averaged 27 points in the month of December. He's an all-star. He might be all-NBA third team again. Brunson definitely should be. Brunson should make an all-NBA appearance for the first time in his career. And he should be an all-star for the first time in his career. He's finally taken that step. And not even finally, this is only the second year where he's expected to be that high, that much of a talent. And he's rose to the occasion every single time there's a challenge. The ESPN reporter said he wouldn't be a 1A. He goes out and drops 36 and 38 the next day. Julius Randle goes down, has an ankle injury in the playoffs last season. Brunson steps up and gets them to the second round. Randle wasn't playing well at the start of this season. Brunson stepped up and carried the team. Jalen Brunson is a Knick, and he's here to stay as a star in this league. I hope he stays in New York for more years than his contract says. I think he'll resign. His dad is a coach here. I think he loves New York. He did grow up in Chicago, but I don't know how much of a factor that has. RJ Barrett talked about how much it means to him to be able to put on the Raptors jersey growing up in Toronto and a Raptors fan. Which, that's pretty cool. Like, you get to play for your childhood team, and he represents Canada. He's one of the only Canadian players, and one of the most talented ones. You got Shea, is probably the best right now. Jamal Murray's also Canadian. But then RJ Barrett's right there. I think Dylan Brooks is Canadian. But he's not better than RJ, I don't think. And even though RJ's not on the team, I was never a huge RJ guy, but it's still tough to see him go. He's a homegrown talent, and someone that we watched develop through the highs and lows of his career so far. All the missed 3-point shots, and the made ones too. He showed a lot of promise at the start of the season. Then he went down with those migraines, then he had the knee injury, and he was back to what he was last year and years prior. But RJ Barrett has the potential to be a really good player. It's just whether or not he stops shooting the three and starts attacking more. Someone who was knocking down the three in the corner and took RJ's spot, OG Anunoby. From long range in this one, OG shot 3 of 6. I'll take that. Barrett probably shoots 1 of 6 or 2 of 6. So, and it was shots that Barrett would take. It wasn't like Anunoby was getting wide open looks from the top of the key. They were the same catch and shoot corner threes. He had a couple dunks, and all his points came off of hustle. Not all of them, but a good amount of his points came off of hustle. Cutting, DiVincenzo found him on a backdoor cut a couple times. Brunson and DiVincenzo kept finding each other. Brunson had a career high 14 assists in this one, and that's huge because he recognized that he wasn't scoring as well in the first quarter, and he made the adjustment to change his game and play floor general, and I'm going to give the ball to my teammates and give them a good chance to score. And Randall was scoring at a pretty efficient rate in this one. 39 points on 24 shots, and he hit 14 of those 24 shots. I'll take that from Julius. I know he's not going to make every shot, but that's probably the right amount of shots for Julius Randle to be taking night in. Especially if he's making them at that rate. Because Randall, he can have off days, and when he has off days, they're not good. They're very bad off days. Randall's a guy who he needs the ball in his hands, and sometimes that can hurt a team. Randall is someone who he's gonna help your team win, and he's gonna provide a lot for your team. But when he's not scoring and he's not hitting his shots, then that's when it hurts a lot. And Randall's definitely had those days. And he had multiple of them at the start of the season. And he started off this season at a historically not efficient rate. And it was tough to watch. But Brunson, that game against the Pelicans, early in the year, it might have been the third game, I think. It was a back-to-back with the Hawks. After a game against the Hawks where they won in Atlanta, they traveled over to New Orleans to the Smoothie King Center and got blown out by the Pelicans. Jalen Brunson had an okay game, but more importantly, Julius Randle had a very bad game, and that is a big problem for when he has those games. And it's an even bigger problem because he's had a lot of them in the postseason. So if Randall can stay pretty consistent in having his on days, the off days won't hurt as much as they do when he's having when they're coming in bunches and they're not once every couple weeks. But the thing with this Knicks team, if they don't play defense, they're not going to win games. And they've shown that multiple times. Whether you look at the Pacer game or you look at the game against the Thunder, where they allowed so many points, and that's why they lost. It was the points and the turnovers that they allowed were the reasons they lost. OG Anunoby was brought to New York to play defense and to help out this problem that has been a glaring issue for the Knicks over the past around a season now. Their defense. But now that OG's here, and now that Achua's here, who played all right in this one, he didn't have any points. He had three rebounds, and he didn't make too much of an impact in this one. But I don't expect that to continue from him. I expect him to be an impact player and to really help this Knick team go make a run in the playoffs. But one of the biggest impacts in this game, Isaiah Hartenstein. He had 3 blocks on Rudy Gobert at the rim, and Rudy Gobert, he's a 7-footer. And for Hartenstein to be getting up with him like that, that's a big time play. And those are big time plays from Isaiah Hartenstein. He had 7 points and 9 rebounds. I'm good with that. The 8 to 10 rebound range is right where I want Hartenstein every single night. That's where Mitch is. Mitch is a little bit higher than that, but I don't expect Hartenstein to grab quite as many boards as Robinson. I just expect him to hold it down until Robinson gets back next year. And I wonder if the Knicks make the playoffs if Robinson will be back, because I think I heard something that he will be, but I'm not 100% sure on that. And if he's back for playoffs, that's a huge upgrade and a huge boost for this Knicks team, who really need the defense and the rebounding. Like, the Knicks were the top of the league in defensive rating before Robinson went down, and after, I think they're 17th or 18th. That's a big difference, and for just one player to go down, that's scary. I think Anunoby's gonna help boost that, maybe get us back into the top 10. And then next year with Mitch, we should definitely have the best defense in the league. No questions asked. We do have Anunoby next year. I made a mistake in the last episode. I thought he was on an expiring contract. But we have him for this year and one more year. And if he gets paired up with Mitchell Robinson on the defensive end of the floor, that's a really good defense. Any defense with OG or Mitchell Robinson by themselves is really good, but pairing them together, that's going to be some big-time defense played by the Knicks. And we have a good head coach for it in Tom Thibodeau, a very defensive-minded coach. So that'll be big. All right, the Knicks win 112-106. Start off the new year with a win. First win of 2024. I think this will be an easier month for the Knicks. They have one of the weakest schedules, and this is the month I think that they'll make that jump into the 4th or 5th seed in the East. And then the other thing I want to talk about in this episode, the college football playoff. The national semifinals just went down yesterday, and they were really good games, especially the Rose Bowl. Between Alabama and Michigan, I think those are the top two teams in the league right now, and in the country. I think Alabama's better than Washington and Texas. But Michael Penix Jr. looked really good. So I'm going to start with the Alabama-Michigan game. Starts off, first play of the game, J.J. McCarthy almost throws a pick. And it would have been a pick if the Alabama defender did not step out of bounds before he caught the ball, or while he was playing defense on the Michigan receiver. And if that happened, Michigan would have been in shambles, and Jalen Milroe and that Crimson Tide would have had really good field position to go open the game with a touchdown. But the thing with Jalen Milroe, there's no threat of him throwing the ball. He either runs or hands it off to his running back. And I don't know if it's Saban not trusting him or him just not having the arm to throw. Because on the last play of the game, in overtime, on 4th and goal from the 4-yard line, they almost tried to run a QB sneak. Milroe had, I think they were 5 wide. Milroe had no one in the backfield. The center messes up the snap. And I guess Milroe thought that he had no chance of making a play unless he ran. It was a high snap. And Milroe just runs right into a wall of Michigan defenders. That defensive line from Michigan destroyed Alabama. A ton of sacks, a ton of QB pressures, a ton of tackles for losses. But it also seemed like Michigan didn't want to win that game. They muffed a punt in the closing minutes of regulation, and they had to settle for overtime, where they might have been able to get into field position if he didn't muff the punt. But it was just turnovers and everything just seemed like Michigan didn't want to win the game when they did. It was almost like a Chargers-like performance where they're allergic to winning. But so that was tough to watch. And eventually they did end up winning in overtime on a rushing touchdown. And a big defensive stand on 4th and goal. With that terrible play call by Saban. I don't know if it was Saban's play call or if it was Milroe improvising and changing up the play. But Alabama loses in the national semifinal against Michigan in the Rose Bowl, 27-20. Michigan gets their first college football playoff win in program history, and they're going to the national championship in New Orleans. And now in the All-State Sugar Bowl, Washington taking on Texas. Michael Penix Jr., who I think the Giants should draft this year. He looked great. His throws were really accurate, and he led his team to a big victory over Quinn Ewers in the Texas Longhorns. So the national championship is set. Washington and Michigan, the 1 seed versus the 2 seed. And I think Michigan is a whole lot better. I think they win this game by a lot. Washington coming out of the Pac-12, there was some controversy that FSU didn't get in over them and Texas and Alabama, but it was just it was a tough decision by the committee. Either way, they were gonna have to leave somebody out, and it ended up being FSU. And you look at their bowl game, they lost by like 60 points, but like 12 people opted out, and most of them were starters. And without Jordan Travis, I thought they were pretty much cooked. And they were beat without a quarterback. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. I'm your host, Ben Ballion, and that's going to do it for the Sports Pod.